In this activity, we're going to be creating a program that utilizes inline modules. Inline modules allow you to organize your code and easily access it. Once you're ready, open up Visual Studio Code and we'll get started. Once Visual Studio Code loads, navigate to your Activities directory. We are on Activity 26B, so double-click on A26B. Once the activity file loads, review the topic and program requirements. Attempt to implement a solution on your own with the video paused. Once completed, resume the video and I will demonstrate my implementation as well as provide insights to the activity topic. All right, let's get started. So the topic for this activity is inline modules. We have a brief summary about what we'll be doing, so I'm going to read it real quick. We have an existing program that's complete, but all the code exists in a single module. And this code can benefit from being organized into multiple modules. So we're going to be moving some code around for this activity. Requirements are to organize the code into two modules based on their functionality. So we're going to have a MSG module, which is short for message, and that'll contain string formatting functions. We also have a math module that will contain math functions. We then need to update the main function to use the functionality from the module. We also have some notes here. The notes indicate that after moving the functions into modules, we should try running cargo check to get a listing of required code changes. So we'll go ahead and do that once we move some things around. So the first thing I'm going to do is actually create the modules. So we'll create a message module, and we'll create a math module. Next, we need to move some functions into these modules. So here we have a trim function, and it has a message as a function parameter. So that's probably a message module function. So give myself a little bit of room, and I'll just copy that in there. And we have another one, capitalize. We're not going to worry about the function bodies because all of these should work fine. I know this return value is a little bit crazy, but we're not concerned with that right now. We're just concerned with moving these functions around. So I'm going to grab this capitalize function. I'll put that into the module. And we also have an exciting function here that also takes a MSG or message as a function parameter. So I'm going to pull that in as well into the module. So now in the message module, we have trim and we have capitalize. And we also have exciting for our functions. Next, we need to fill out the math module with the appropriate functions. So we can see right here, we have an add, sub, and mul. So this will be an addition, subtraction, and multiply. These all return numbers. So these will be our math functions. I'm just going to cut all of them out at once and stick them into the math module. Now that I've created the modules and moved all the functions into them, I'm going to run a cargo check as indicated by the notes. So we should do cargo check with our activity number. That way we can get any errors and see how to proceed. So I'm going to jump into my terminal. To open your own terminal, you can go to Terminal, New Terminal. So if we run cargo check --bin A26B, we should get some errors that tell us what we should be doing next. So if we scroll up to the top, you'll always want to start from the first error because fixing the first error can sometimes lead to fixing all the subsequent errors. In this case, it won't, but a lot of times it can. So our first error is cannot find function add in this scope. And it tells us a line number 50. So it says that this add function was not found, but it also recommends that we can consider importing this math function. So it tells us we can use create math add. I'm going to do something a little different than what it recommends, but most of the time, this should work fine. Let's jump back into the code. So what I'll be doing for the math functionality modules, I'm going to access the modules directly. So I can do math and access the module directly. So this will go into the math module and then access the add function. So I'm going to do that for all three of these math functions. So now we should be able to perform the operations because we're accessing the math module located here. So for example, down here we have the multiply function. So we access the math module here, and then we access the multiply function And so then we'll be able to get the functionality that this function provides. The next thing I'm going to do is access the modules for the messaging functions. So I'm going to do something that the compiler recommended, which was a use statement. I'm going to start by creating a new scope with curly braces, and I'm just going to move all of this content into those curly braces. There we go. So what happens with a scope, which is initiated by an opening curly brace and a closing curly brace down here, once we get to the closing curly brace on the bottom, everything within those curly braces should be destroyed. That includes any using statements that we have, which imports modules. So that means we won't be using it once we get to the end curly brace. So if we use the MSG module, we're going to use all of the three of these functions. We're going to use trim, we're going to use capitalize, and we're going to use exciting. So all we got to do is type those in. And we always end a using statement with a semicolon. So I'm going to save that. And now we should be able to access these functions. So we're using the message module, and within the message module, we're using all of this functionality. So all of this functionality here is available to us within this curly brace and the one down here at the bottom. So we can use those three functions anywhere within those curly braces. And we have three usages. We have trim, capitalize, and exciting. So let's hop back into a terminal and we'll run cargo check again and see if we have any more errors or if the program checks out. Back in the terminal, I'm going to run cargo check again. And we still have 6 errors. So let's see what the first one says. First one is indicating that the capitalize function is private. So it's within a module, but we're not able to access it. And it tells us where it is. It's on line 23. So we can go back to our code and jump straight to line 23. So we'll jump to line 23. So here we have our capitalize function. So the message module is accessible to everything outside the module. However, the things that are inside the module are only accessible inside the module itself. So we can't access any of these functions from out here, only from within here. In order to fix that, we need to use the pub keyword to make it public. So pub for public. So we'll just add that. And we'll do each function, we're going to make it public. And we'll go ahead and do the math functions as well, because we're going to get the same errors. Now that the functions are public, we should be able to access them outside of the modules. And we'll run a cargo check again, just to make sure. So I'll hop back to a terminal, we'll do cargo check, and no errors, and everything checks out. So now I'll run the program and we'll see what we get. To run the program, I'll do cargo run -- bin A26B. So the program ran and we have some output. So that means we've completed the activity. As long as the program compiles and runs, then we're done. Before we finish up, let's go back and look at the code one more time, just to ensure that we understand how the module system works. So we'll just look at the math module. So we're creating a inline module. We're naming it math. We have public functions. So these functions here, they're accessible outside the math module, but we still need to use the name math when we access them in order to know where they come from. If we go down to our main function, we have 2 ways that we can access the functionality. So we can access it using the name of the module, the path selection operator, which is 2 colons, and then the add function, which is one of the functions that's defined. So we're doing that 3 times for each of the functions in order to calculate the results. The other way is with a use statement. So I'm creating a new scope. That way this use statement is only valid within that scope. So here we're using the message module and we're selecting the capitalize, exciting, and trim functions within this message module. When we have a use this way, we're able to use these directly. So we don't need to type message every time we want to access them because we're just using these things directly. So we can see they're being used here, here, and down here. And it works properly because we have the using statement right there. This concludes the activity video on inline modules. I'll see you in the next presentation.